You are anti-radical Islamic Muslim. You give great video about this in
Mike,
what's
ask the
going
question.
on in England. You are attacked.
Mike, you asked a question about the gay
Good work, Drew. Don't let the professional broadcaster recap the question. Go ahead and go back to the guy on the phone.
Go ahead.
You would think that a very popular, very successful, very good-looking LGBT spokesperson like yourself would be worshipped.
You see, when you got to good-looking, I knew you were talking about me.
Yes.
What was the question?
You are not someone who is well liked typically by the LGBT community, and what do you think that is?
Oh, because they're idiots. They have been completely consumed by the propaganda from the left. Now, look, it is, of course, obviously true that historically conservatives have not been very nice to gays. Mm-hmm. Republicans in particular have not been very nice to gays. And I don't like those Republicans any more than you guys do. But things have changed. Donald Trump is the most pro-gay person ever to run for president. What presidential candidate in history ever before stood with a pride flag, gay pride flag on stage? The guy is, he's long history of at transgender bathrooms. Nobody ever mentions this. He said, just let them do whatever they want. He is, things have changed basically. And what the danger that I see for gay people, and this is outside of offense taking and safe spaces and all the trigger blah blah blah. In the real world, the danger to gay people comes from Islam, and it is not liberals. It is not Democrats. It is Republicans who are going to be able to save gay people from being slaughtered in nightclubs. And as a gay person, I know this is a very controversial point of view to express. As a gay person, I am very comfortable with Donald Trump's proposed Muslim ban. I have to tell you. Because that is the real threat to actual life, not threat to people's feelings, not threats to people's kind of, what I don't care about all that stuff. I just want to stop people being actually shot to death.
Or thrown off a building.
Or thrown off buildings. And who do you think is going to help? Donald Trump, who's saying, let's stop the terrorists coming in, or Hillary Clinton, who is funded by Saudi Arabia? It seems fairly obvious to me, and I think that the gay community
with Saudi Arabia is very. I can't understand it. Very confusing,
very complicated. But really, I think by the way, and that it isn't just me. I think there is a huge backlash in the gay community as they realize that even their own organizations have started to turn on them. GLAAD, Stonewall, all the rest of it. They're becoming obsessed with transgender pronouns. They've forgotten about HIV. HIV infection rates are starting to go back up again because no one talks about it anymore. They've forgotten their primary purpose because they've become political campaigning organizations and not advocacy groups for the minorities that they used to represent. Why? Because they're not needed anymore. Gays are doing fine.
Our guest is Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo, again, we appreciate you being here with us.
Well, thank you so much.
Being open, honest, and thorough in your openness with our callers. And you were talking about you were trying to tell me a story before we had to go out to commercial break about what had happened to you on your tour. I believe you meant your college tour.
Yes, and I've forgotten what the story was.
You've forgotten it? Oh, my goodness.
Let me ask you a quick question.
It was a good one. What we can talk about?
You were talking about how people...
I remember. No, I was talking about how I was saving America. I remember now.
Yes.
The police chiefs, and I have no reason to suppose that there's any causal connection, or any reason why this might be so, but. The police chiefs at UC Davis, UW Seattle, and UC Berkeley, at the time when the police were told to stay away and just let the protesters go wild, were all female police chiefs. And they were all very closely associated with the university administrators. And I'm guessing what happened is some kind of sisterhood thing where it's like, let's just make it as impossible as we can for this guy who hates feminism and all the rest of it. Ordinary people got hurt. And what I've noticed since, and I guess I am the crucible in which these little explosions start. And now there's this huge, a brush fire has turned into a galactic conflagration, between these groups of agitators on both sides, really. But what I have noticed since is that the policing strategies have changed. And that's a very positive development, because what it means is universities are realizing that they have to uphold their commitment to allow anyone to speak that if students want them to speak. Now, I'm not what, it's obvious within, having spent a second in my company that I'm not not what any of the names the media calls me, right? But even if I were, what's the guy's name? Richard Spencer, the white supremacist guy, right? Even if I were him, they're still obliged to provide him a platform if students want to hear from him. Now, as it happens, I'm just a sassy gay guy who likes to crack black whatever jokes and fat jokes and talk talk about how I don't like the progressive left. But such is the fury from the left, because they've never really seen anyone like me before, who's fearless and who's actually prepared to park my pink tanks on their lawn and beat them where they live.
Has anything you've said ever created hate, do you think? Has it generated actual behavior? And let me sort of...
No, it's the opposite.
Well, hold on a second. And parenthetically, along those same lines, have you ever said anything you regretted?
Well, yeah, so I'll do in two parts. Has anything I've ever said created hate? I think the opposite. The reason the left hates laughter because it can't control it. You can't. Authoritarians hate laughter because you can't control what people laugh at, what they find funny. The reason the left likes to clamp down on jokes, and this is why you get Seinfeld, Chris Rock, all the rest of it saying they won't play college campuses because the kids are too sensitive these days. The reason they want to clamp down on jokes is they want to suggest that words can be harmful, can be hurtful. When like telling jokes about black people, jokes about they're all the best jokes. And people who's like Sarah Silverman, they used to be funny before they contracted feminism and became became awful. I'm one of the only people, I think, in American public life who is unafraid to tell jokes about anyone and anything. And what the left misunderstands about humor is that it brings people together. It doesn't drive them apart. What are pickup lines? They're jokes designed to ease people into communication with into conversational congress with one another. Humor binds us. It doesn't drive us apart. And by constantly calling people sexist and racist and homophobic and transphobic for cracking jokes, you are achieving nothing but driving people apart. And as for have I ever said anything I regretted? Well, I think probably many of your listeners will remember in February I had a little professional hiccup when a tape surfaced of me saying things that I did not mean. So I in my youth was a victim of something very unpleasant, and I figured that gave me the right to crack jokes about it, because humor is is how I
this is sexual abuse comments,
right? And humor is how I get through. I think humor is how many of us get through all the terrible things in life.
So you're adjusting those things.
So I was addressing those things in a lighthearted and flippant way on a 4-hour 3 a.m. live stream. Very one of those booze fueled chat fests where things
you regret saying that.
Ideas tumble out of your mouth half formed. And I said and I made one remark that I did not mean. And I regretted, and I apologize for that. It's the only apology I ever intend to make in my entire career, because it's the only time I think I've ever been wrong. But for sure, and I'm humble enough to acknowledge when I think I have misspoken or acted wrongly. I just don't do it that often.
You said earlier that you were oblivious to maybe negative feedback or the way that certain people, certain tropes would behave. But you clearly have very thick skin, and you're willing to be courageous, at least intellectually. But as a person, does it ever really hurt your feelings to go home and see the negative tweets, the negative write-ups, the blogs, whatever? I mean, it has to get at you somewhat, right?
I mean, maybe once every millennia, I might wake up in a bad mood and just be and just see. One of the things I guess that makes me upset is as I mentioned earlier, I have love in my life. He's black, and when people on the internet are calling me a white supremacist and a Nazi and all the rest of it, and I look over at the love of my life, and I just think every once in a while it gets to you, and you just think, if only they knew. And because I'm not the kind of person that wants to cynically abuse their private relationship for professional reasons, it's not like I can I'm not just going to post a picture of a couple of us and expose him to danger and to whatever. So sometimes I just have to suck that stuff up, and I can't respond, for his sake. I once in a while, I guess, but to be perfectly honest with you, I really don't care. that much about mean words from people who don't take the time to actually listen to me. Because my experience is that the people who hate me, the people who are probably complaining right now to you for daring to have me on the show and have probably been complaining for some time and will continue to complain afterwards. I doubt whether many of those people have actually ever read any of my columns. I doubt whether many of those people have actually watched my college talks, because if they had, I think they would appreciate the same level of nuance and intelligence that I hope that I've exhibited in this interview.
That is the stuff that drives me insane, which is what I was talking about with the trust me, I'm lying. They believe the rhetoric of the response, and then the response gets reported as fact as opposed to going to the primary sort of. But I got to go to. I got so many calls for you, Milo. I want to get to some of them. Dennis, go ahead.
No, we must.
Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Milo.
Hi.
Before I get to my point, just a very quick quote attributable to Winston Churchill. If you're young and you're not a liberal, you have no heart. And if you're older and you're not a conservative, you have no mind.
Well, I guess I was born age 90. I think there's some there's clearly from the life trajectory of people some truth to that, because people begin with very idealized notions about, peace, love, and understanding and being wonderful to each other, and then they have mortgages to pay and kids to raise. And this is the problem I have with libertarianism. It's, libertarianism sounds fine in principle, but in practice, I don't want my daughter to be a stripper, so it might be quite nice to disincentivize that, in some way. So I don't know. I don't think I followed the conventional political trajectory that many people do. All I want to do is in my college talks, make it okay for other people who have unconventional paths through their political discovery and development, able to express themselves on campuses. And currently, college Republicans, YAL and YAF and all these other organizations on campus who represent the growing, timid but increasingly confident conservative minorities, on campuses. I want them to be able to speak their own truths and express their own opinions as fearlessly and as and with as much pride and as much enthusiasm and as much excitement and as much spectacle as people with left-wing opinions can. And that's really my only goal.
And let me throw the libertarian point of view into the mix here and defend their position, which is there are other ways to disincentivize certain kinds of behaviors without the government doing it. Just saying. Mel, go ahead.
Oh, hey, hi, Milo. Hi, Mike.
How are you doing?
What up?
Dr. Drew.
Hey.
Yeah, Milo, I just want to get your opinion on something. I was really disappointed this year. Christopher Street West decided to make the Gay Pride Parade a big resist protest march. And, yeah, they publicized it. And I thought, oh, well, maybe it's mixed with all the, the joy of a parade. I go walk up the street on the Santa Monica Boulevard. The streets were empty. This usually invites families to engage them and, all things about, gay people, whether, extreme or not, whatever. Anyway, I was extremely disappointed. It totally got hijacked. Maxine Pelosi and Adam Schiff were there speaking, and it was just so mean-spirited, and I think it just sucked the joy out of it all.
There's an ugliness about it, isn't
your opinion. Thanks a lot, guys. Love you, Milo.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, listen, I think that gay shame, gay pride, rather. Well, they're indistinguishable. If you actually look at the parades these days, gay pride is an anachronism. I don't think it performs much of a function any longer. I don't think there's any reason for it. Really, it's a very corporatized, vodka and lube sponsored. Way for people to waste their weekend, getting high and getting off with each other. I don't think it really accomplishes anything in a civil rights sense. But this is a wider point. Intersectionality, which is one of these words that the left has come up with to describe the fact that some people's lives are terrible for multiple reasons. Is a sort of buzzword, and you'll sometimes hear it. What it basically means is that these protest groups, whether it is feminism or the LGBT movement or Black Lives Matter, whatever, they've basically run out of stuff to complain about. So they're all teaming up. and they all now show up to the same stuff together to protest the sort of nebulous artificial constructs of patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalism, all of these, they don't actually have very much to say anymore. And I think that gay pride, there's no reason why gay pride should be particularly political, especially when,
it's history. But you're back to talking about history, of course.
Of course, but times have moved on, and you can't stay in history forever.
Oh, you were the one that half an hour ago said if you don't study your history.
No, but what I was talking about was the left hijacking the gay rights movement. Okay. Because what I'm saying is, times have moved on from the it's perfectly reasonable. I would have agreed with you. 50 years ago that the Republicans were the problem, right? That the conservatives were the problem for sure, but they're not anymore. The problem isn't really Democrats or Republicans, because people don't care if you're gay these days. It's quite hard to go out onto the street and find somebody who really, really, really cares about this stuff. The problem is Islam. The problem is radical Islam. And there is only one side of the political divide that is prepared to speak openly and honestly about it. And it's not even all of them, not even all Republicans. Paul Ryan won't do it. It's Trump, and it is some of the Trump, supporting media. It is me, and it is a small faction of this new, trolly, mischievous, dissident, populist, nationalist right who just, we just find it mind-boggling that the left, on the one hand, will speak about tolerance and inclusion and fairness and all the rest of it, and on the other hand, support a candidate who's funded by a country that wants to see us hurled off roofs and goodness what else. There's so much hypocrisy and so much of the gay community being taken for granted by the left, and it just makes me despair for my fellow homosexuals when they see things like the Orlando nightclub massacre happen, and they still don't get the message. And you see this peace, love, understanding. I mean, the Ariana Grande concert, for instance, happened in my home country, in Manchester, and I challenged her on Facebook to condemn radical Islam. And I don't want to make any anti-Muslim statements on it. It's not about getting at anybody in particular, but say, radical Islamic terror is I said to her in a number of statements that were very widely reported, you must condemn this ideology. This is a moment for culture, which is so much more powerful than politics, for a pop star to condemn a movement which is sucking in new converts. I mean, Britain, the UK, Manchester, where this stuff happened, the UK sends more fighters to ISIS than any country except Belgium, where they also have an Islamic problem. Ariana Grande making a statement about the evils of radical Islamic terror could save millions of lives, but she won't do it, and she won't do it because the left continually panders to the worst forms of Islam, and to see the gay community time and time again drop back on, fall back onto this love wins. Let's change our Twitter avatars to rainbow flags. Let's all just blah blah blah.
Let's get you kicked off Twitter.
Yeah, get Milo Yiannopoulos kicked off Twitter. The real enemy is that orange clown in the White House. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But 50 people were killed in that nightclub in Orlando at the Pulse nightclub, and one gay guy showed up to point the finger at who was really responsible, and it was me. And I went down there and I gave a speech, and I said, look, you've got to stop listening to these people who are lying to you. You've got to start naming the problem, and you've got to start protecting your own, and the gay people have got to start waking up. And that speech has been viewed, I think, across various platforms in various ways about 10 million times now, and I would like to think that it had a big impact on the way that the election went. And my belief is that the stranglehold that progressives have had up until now on many of these minorities, whether it's I say minorities, women too, women, blacks, gays, it's my hope that one of the effects of the Donald Trump presidency, which has basically blown apart any sensible definition of Republican, Democrat, left, right. Nobody has any idea what any of these words mean anymore. Perhaps one of the effects of that is that people will start voting with reason, logic, and fact, instead of tribally, and will start actually listening to, actually start voting with their heads instead of with their body parts and their skin color. That's my dream for America. America was founded on ideals. It was America was founded not, on the basis of skin color, sexuality, and gender, but America was founded, on freedom, on the idea that you should be able to do, be, and say anything. And from my point of view, as a free speech activist, the greatest threat to that in America today is the progressive left, and that is where you see, they are the ones responsible for the hijacking of gay pride. They are the ones responsible for, the papering over of who is responsible for terrorist atrocities. They are the ones responsible for all manner of things that make us less safe and that drive us further apart.
We got to wrap this up, my friend. I appreciate you spending time with us. I'm just going to add one sort of aphorism to your little disclaimer there, which is, wouldn't you also agree the level playing field, though, is also an important feature of the American idea?
I wish there was one.
Not equal in all respects, but equal opportunity under the law.
I believe in equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't have a problem with, just to give you a very, very quick example.
Very fast, because I can break and come back to you if you want to hang.
Fine, let's do that.
All right, Milo Yiannopoulos agreed to stay with us just to finish this one thought. Go ahead, Milo.
Well, I just like the sound of my own voice.
We noticed that.
We noticed that. Stop it. You were begging me in the break.
That's true.
No, I was just... Well, we were talking about the equality, and I think one of the differences, in particularly between American liberals and conservatives is conservatives want equality of opportunity. And if you remember earlier in the show when we were talking about the different educational choices that women make, provided that women have the option to choose any subject they want, if they choose to study subjects that lead to lower paying careers, the rest of us shouldn't be punished for that. And the government shouldn't be making businesses pay women more because women made those choices. I believe that every smart person, irrespective of their skin color, their sexuality, their gender, or wherever they came from, should have the opportunity to go to Harvard if they are smart enough and pick whatever subject it is they want to study. That is not the case in America, and I hope that one day that this country gets there. But that is equality of opportunity. What you choose to do with that opportunity is up to you. Equality of outcome, that's communism, and that has never worked, and it has sown evil and discord and tyranny and misery and
wearing a Milo shirt if it came in on time when I ordered it in September. So first
good heavens! I'm sorry. Are you the lady that emailed me?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
And
I will check up on that for you after the show. And if I maybe I'll give you this. I will check up on that for you after the show. Come and see us. What's the question, lady?
First of all, that's one of my formerly many stickers on your hat. But second of all, I was going to ask more about your views on communism, since this summer I visited Hungary and I visited what they call their House of Terror, which was basically it was the Nazis and the Soviets both shared the same building, and basically we got to see the basement where many people were tortured and killed. Yeah. And after that, I used to be so far left that my parents said I made a circle. But after that, my views on communism, everything drastically changed. So since I haven't heard you talk much on communism, I wanted to know your views, since there's a lot of commies outside.
Sure. They were lovely. Well, I even came dressed as one. A lot more glamorous and beautiful, but. Well, it is a political ideology that has been probably the most underreported version of hatefulness in the history of our species. I mean, communism has killed a hell of a lot more people than fascism has. Not that it's a competition. I'm not the sort of person that gets into body counts, but if I were, communism wins. It's a weird sort of thing. It's become a sort of glamorous... Well, I don't think it is anymore, actually. I think it was, for a very long time, a kind of glamorous moment in culture that, you could sort of wear a hammer and sickle, or you could, wear a Che Guevara T-shirt. And it was sort of all right because somehow they were seen as hot because they were sweaty and they had beards and they came from some sort of, non-American country, so they must have been cool. People are starting to realize, I think... just how horrific conditions are in countries that are run in that way. And it's partly as a result of globalization, with more people moving in more directions all the time. So you've got more people telling each other, like, well, I lived under communism, and no. You know, and it's partly also, I think, as people start to see the difference between totalitarian top-down regimes in the East and the freedom and democracy, property rights in the West. Ultimately, and this is the thing that I don't talk about very much, but it's important to understand. Gender studies departments, African studies departments, the Soros-funded protest groups, modern feminism, Black Lives Matter. These people are all, when it comes down to it, when it ultimately boils down to it, really interested primarily not in gender or race, but in dismantling capitalism. They don't believe in the system that has made America great. Donald Trump obviously does. But these people don't believe in democracy, property rights, freedom of expression, capitalism. They don't believe in any of the things that have made the West a nice place to live. They don't believe in any of the things that have made the West a nice place if you're a woman or a minority, or a nice place if you just want to make a good go of it, start a business and be a success. They don't like that system very much. Your media doesn't either. I mean, 98% of journalists are total fucking cunts. They are hopeless incompetents, liars, and political ideologues. And they simply don't believe in any of the things that have made this country really awesome. That's because they're communists. That's because they're socialists. Not to use words that have been perhaps exhausted by, fanatics, but ultimately, what this stuff boils down to, is a sort of globalist communist agenda, and it is ugly, and it results in pain, misery, suffering, inequality, all the things that progressives claim they hate. The best system to reduce inequality between the very rich and the very poor, the best system to give everybody an equal shot, regardless of their circumstances of birth, whether they're women or gays or blacks or whatever, the best system is the one you have in America. It's not perfect, but it is the best system that exists anywhere in the world, because it is characterized by democracy, freedom, capitalism, property rights, and all of the other things that have made America the greatest country in the history of human civilization. It is that. And many of the people in your university departments, in your media, and in Hollywood simply don't share our values. They are a problem. Much of what I talk about, although I don't articulate it exactly in those terms, really is about communism. So if you want to take it sort of a step further from the stuff I do, whether it's Islam or feminism, Black Lives Matter, whatever, take it a step further. It is about a clash of civilizations. It is about people who simply do, the people who do and the people who do not believe in capitalism. Capitalism is the best system for organizing society that humankind has yet come up with. If America loses that, it loses everything. And I'm glad that with Trump's election, it looks like you've at least hung on to it for another few generations. Let me do... Well, I just don't believe it's real. I don't think that millennials believe like you think they believe. I think you've just got a very small, very loud contingent of assholes who work at BuzzFeed and who are sort of bloggers and work in the entertainment business. I just don't believe that millennials are all that mental. And let me give you, and I think we better wrap up there, but let me give you one little glimmer of hope before I leave, which is my fans start at like 13. Somebody even came to my show, was 12 years old a few days ago. Let me tell you, if you're worried about millennials and how crazy your fellow millennials are, as scared as people my age, 35, perhaps down to 25, are about admitting that maybe feminism isn't all it's cracked up to be, and maybe Black Lives Matter isn't the way to save black people, and maybe, actually America's pretty great. Fairly uncontroversial statements, but things that people my age don't generally make, and people your age don't. Statements people your age don't generally make. As fearful and as reticent as my generation is, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds are incredibly bold and incredibly clear and incredibly forthright about just how much they fucking hate progressives. They really are. And you haven't seen the impact of this yet. I'm probably the only person in America who really sees the scale of this. They really sees the, just how many people there are like this. There are videos that circulate inside BuzzFeed, and I know this because I, do have friends that work everywhere, even places like that. There are people that work inside BuzzFeed that, who tell me, there are videos circulating there that go viral of like young girls ridiculing feminism and BuzzFeed while they're playing video games, like 13-year-olds. There are signs that BuzzFeed's younger viewers just absolutely hate their race baiting. Like 25 things I think of when I hear the word white, and you've got these like spoiled brat cunts. It's like, well, I just think of like oppression. It just makes me like really feel like I just like not safe in my own environment. Young people hate this shit. They hate it. They see it for what it is, and it's partly a reaction to their own parents' generation. Because you got to remember, like I'm 32 now. 35-year-olds are parents now, and they have kids who are like 9 or 12 or whatever, depending on how slutty they were. And these kids are partly rebelling against the politics of their parents, and partly just seeing this stuff for what it is. So if you're feeling sad or if you're worried about the apparent and complete victory of progressivism over the millennial generation, I would just say sit tight and watch what people who are 13 today do when they get to 18, when they really hit the internet properly, because they hate feminism. They hate Black Lives Matter. They hate Hillary Clinton. They hate Lena Dunham. They hate Amy Schumer. They hate all of that stuff. They really, really loathe it. And, people say with sort of dreary regularity that politics comes in cycles and culture operates in cycles. It has been 30 years since progressives had a good kick in the teeth, since they stopped running everything and stopped being in charge of everything. Let me tell you, it is coming. It is not just coming heralded by people like me, but it is a generational change. There's an entire generation of young Americans who will not stand for this shit any longer. They are coming. They will back you up. They are there. Thank you very much.
Oh, stop the press is a gay man's catty. Oh, good Lord. No speech. Oh dear. Oh dear. Let me tell you, sir, fat shaming works. Of course it works. I mean, who would ever imagine that fat shaming wouldn't work? Like somebody you love, so do I look hot in this? No, not anymore. You'd stop eating. And in fact, all the studies suggest. All right, sweetheart. Criminologist Dr. Richard Johnson from the University of Toledo. You want some facts? Here are some. Based on the 2012 numbers, it would take 40 years worth of blacks killed by police to equal the total number of blacks murdered by police in a single year. 900 people have been killed by cops in 2016. 47% were white males. Only 24% were black males. Black men are not killed out of proportion, especially considering that they're much more likely to interact with cops. People are killed by police about as often as they're killed by lightning. There are no protests about storms. Black males are 58% of those killed legally by private citizens in self-defense. You might think that's an aha moment about racist whites, but 75% of those were killed by other blacks. FBI statistics on murder lay bare the real threats to black lives in America. Black men are about 6.5% of the US population, but they commit 52% of all murders over a 30-year period, which has dipped to about 40% in recent years, but still horribly and vastly disproportionate. Black men overwhelmingly murder other black people. Whites overwhelmingly murder other whites. That's not the narrative from Black Lives Matter. Looking at overall violent crime, blacks are 27 times more likely to attack whites than vice versa, and 8 times more likely to attack Hispanics. That's a shocking number I hope you take away from my visit. 90% of blacks that die from murder die